Welcome back, everyone. We are here with Mr. Noah Healy and just absolutely blowing my mind. I want to recommend, we'll have it, or actually, I want to say this, we'll have a few more breaks coming up, but it's a good idea to get a notepad and a pen because there's so much information here that is just mind blowing. And if you're in media, multimedia, if you're a content creator, you build websites, that last segment, I believe, is super, super important. And if anything gives you a reason to want to reach out to Noah and follow him, it's a lot of what he just said and really powerful information. So I thank you for that. We're going to get into your transition to market design and game theory. So, what sparked your interest, Noah, in the mathematics of information and computation?
Well, it leads right into what we were talking about before. So I get a job programming computers, and I had a little bit of computer programming in high school, a little bit in grade school, actually, and a little bit in college. And I hadn't really engaged with it that much. It didn't particularly impress me, the kinds of applications that were generally associated with it. Um, I did work on a problem, and that Tracy Whittem distribution thing is actually associated with that problem space. So I'm becoming back to the problem of distribution of selected uh, distribution sums again in the future. But the Monte Carlo techniques, where you figure out the properties of a big complex system by writing a simulation for that system and then running that simulation many, many times to see what the average or other sorts of distributional properties of multiple runs of the system actually are. But at any rate, not much to it. So I get a job and I'm programming computers, and that engineering ethics like class kicks in. You're a professional, you're supposed to know what you're talking about. And they were doing some training with me. They wanted me to learn this stuff, obviously, so I could actually do the job. But I wanted to learn this stuff. And again, what we were talking about before, I need things to make sense for me to understand them. So there were a few pieces. Regular expressions are a completely elemental mathematical form that also, as arithmetic is to numbers, regular expressions are to character strings, just to give you a basic idea of what's going on there. So that gives you a very powerful and general tool for parsing out and understanding text strings within files and so on. And that was very natural. But as we were getting into sort of bigger system ideas and other data analytics and other things that the computer could and couldn't do, I just started reading the internet. And as it happens, the papers that were written by the people that invented the algorithms and languages that our computers are written in and written for are all public domain, and they're out there. Uh, so I started reading those things as sort of professional obligation. Um, but as I got into them and started to understand what the key depths were to what was going on, and gained an understanding that allowed me to actually characterize and organize these things in ways that meant that I could actually think about them and remember them. Uh, the understanding that I came to is that computational mathematics and information is the mathematics of philosophy. And what these things are at base is imagination machines. Um, there's a concept called an interpreter, and computers are physical instantiations of an interpreter. An interpreter is a device that, when you tell it a description of a device, it behaves like the device you described. So imagine if you had an appliance in your kitchen, and 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 a couple of books, a book that said refrigerator, dishwasher, oven. And when you put the oven book inside this device, it was an oven. And when we put the refrigerator book inside this device, it was a refrigerator. And we put the dishwasher book inside the device, it was a dishwasher. Well, in principle, that's what computers allow. There's a principle where we could build a physical machine that did precisely and exactly that. And it wouldn't just be able to take those three books. It would be able to take any book of similar complexity and become that device as well.
Gosh. Okay. So so I think the last time we talked about this, and it wasn't necessarily that we disagreed, it was just a different perspective on the issue. And one of the things that you're pretty passionate about, from my understanding, is, you want to build a better economic system, or you have a better economic system that you want for the world. And, there's a lot of rumors. There's from the Abrahamic religion side of things, there's a belief that there's a new beast system that's coming. And there's the end of the world people. Some people call this new financial system the quantum financial system, and it's backed by Nezra and Jezra. There's a lot of conspiracy beliefs around this new financial system that people believe is about to be rolled out. They're looking at the banking, they're looking at all that's going on in the world, and they think that this is the end, and now we're getting ready to have this apocalypse of sorts. There's that belief system. There's people that don't believe in any of that. But the fact is this: we know without a shadow of a doubt, this financial system we live in now sucks for everyone, unless if you're elite. It does suck, or the game, or you have some secret information or whatever. It just, right now, there's a world that is impoverished. There's people that are hurting financially in ways they've never known before, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. It seems to be getting worse. People like myself have a lot of hope that good things are coming. Like, there's something good that's going to happen through all of this. I believe it. I believe the blessing is in the breaking. That could be a spiritual belief. I don't know, but that's what I believe. But you have an idea, a plan, a concept that everybody gets to win from, at least the way that I understand it. So can you please share your vision for a better economic system that you are currently working on?
Absolutely. So you'd gone into a lot of detail there. I would say that my perspective is that this system actually sucks for everybody, even if they are elite, even if you're under the impression that it doesn't suck for you.
Wow.
And that the issue, while there are many issues and people have a wide variety of beliefs, some of them are probably false. Some of them, some of them might actually be true. But the problem that I can see and I can actually think about is that the core algorithm is actually broken by overcapacity. And that is the core problem. And so the vision I see has to do with understanding finance as a part of a society and the value proposition that it actually has. So the value proposition of a financial system is the communication of economically relevant information through prices. So if prices are almost universally known in ways that are dependably usable, then people can make the best economic decisions for themselves and the society. And if that isn't true, if those prices are not almost universally known or aren't dependably available, then people cannot make the best economic decisions for themselves or for society. This isn't controversial. Multiple people have won Nobel Prizes from multiple points around the political spectrum for proving that this is the case. The problem is that the markets that we presently use to get the most valuable of those prices don't work as the ease of communication improves through computers and computer technology. So you can think of it like a transportation network. If a country, if you have a society that cannot transport goods at all, there's no horses, there's no walking, there's no roads, there's no rail, there's no boats, there's no rafts. Everyone just lives on the land that they live on, and whatever it is that's there is what they live on. This guy eats well, but he dresses in leaves. That guy over there eats poorly, but he's got some cloth on his back. You can't eat cotton, but you can wear it. This guy lives in a house made out of bricks, and that guy lives in a house made out of wood, and that guy lives in a house made out of straw, not because they're the three little pigs and they're planning badly, but because this guy lives in a place where there's mud and he can make bricks, and that guy lives in a place where there's woods, and so he can make boards. We move up one level from that, and we have some kind of transport system. We have roads. Well, Roman roads, some of them have lasted for a millennia, but you could not drive modern 18-wheelers on Roman roads, even well-maintained ones, because they were built for horse carts. They were built for people to walk on. They were built for armies to march on. The weight and power of a modern 18-wheeler moving 60 plus miles an hour, 25 plus tons, would tear those roads apart. And so if you're going to have 18-wheelers or trains or super carriers, you need to build ports, rail, roads that can actually put up with those things. The Panama Canal was an enormous advance in the speed that which people could get from the eastern to the western hemisphere and back and forth. But modern supercarriers are so big that they can't go through the Panama Canal. And so the efficiency that they gain from being enormous is large enough to pay the freight to sail around the bottom of South America or Africa to get to the Atlantic, the Pacific. That's the shift. And deepening and widening the canal, which is a thing that's happened on more than one occasion, would if we continue to generate larger and larger ships, would be a necessary change in order to be able to make those transport systems as efficient and functional as possible. So going from our sort of long history of physical transport to intentional transport, so why the deals that would underpin the needs to make those trades. Two people can come together and make a deal, and they can make any deal they feel like about anything that they want. That deal won't necessarily be uncoerced, and so it might not be that economically valuable. But if they're both honorable, they make an uncoerced deal that's in their common interests. That's great. But there aren't two people. There's almost 8 billion of us. And we have collective interests in the production of food, energy, clothing, building material, and so on.
Microchips.
And yes, yeah. And that collective interest is expressible through the price system. How much does oil cost? It costs the amount that it costs. That means that the amount that we want to buy is also the amount that we want to sell. If the price is too high, then we want to sell more than we want to buy. If the price is too low, then we want to buy more than we want to sell. So things like the gas crisis in the 70s happened because for political reasons, we did not want to let the price float. And so we declared that the price was lower than it was actually there. And so people wanted to buy more than there actually was. And then there wasn't enough anymore because we wanted to buy too much. The reason we don't have gas lines now is that the price has gone up to discourage people from using it, because we're, only going to make the amount that we're going to make. And so when Saudi Arabia turns off the taps, or we sanction Russia, or we come up with a brand new shale, extraction technique, and more flows out of the central basin, then the price can go up or down to respond to that and let people know how much they should buy, how much they should make, and so on. And those systems are being overrun by noisy middlemen, speculators that can, at very low cost to themselves, put forth propositions that, for the most part, don't actually wind up turning into deals, but which create noise that we all have to cope with in determining what deals we should be offering and what deals we should be taking. And people taking less than optimal deals imposes a cost on all of society. It imposes a direct cost on that person because you're willing to work for less than you could be, or you're willing to pay more than you actually could have gotten. But because we have a highly networked system, if the people that are making your breakfast cereal are spending too much on the grain that they're buying, then you're spending too much on the breakfast cereal you're buying from them. And since those people are then also buying, say, power off the grid, they're not spending as much for power off the grid as they should be, because if they were doing things properly, they'd be able to buy more and sell more at greater profit for themselves and use up more energy and hire more people to do those things. And all of these things mushroom out. So if you drop a pebble in a pond, you see ripples going out. If you take a clump of sand and sort of spread it out into the pond, the ripples start from each point but start crossing each other continuously, and you get a much noisier pattern happening. That's where we are. Almost every single economic activity is the result of erroneous facts that were available to that person impacting all of the other people also engaging erroneously. And that's the primary source of the financial disruption that we're seeing increase in frequency and increase in severity around the world. And one of the things that's driving a lot of these elite top-down, like, hey, we need to do these things so that things will keep working, is they're trying to find ways to keep the system functioning when what's breaking the system is its form. And so they are not, in any real sense, new financial proposals. They are recapitulations of the old financial proposals in new clothing, in the hopes that the problem won't follow them. But since the problem is algorithmically fundamental, they're essentially just going to bring the problems with them. And since they're also engaging the technology that's causing the problem, they're going to make the problem significantly worse.
Are you hearing you talk? The thing that keeps popping in my head is it's almost like you're making this, you're not saying this. I'm not saying you're saying these words, but it's almost like you're suggesting that we are better off with an AI controlled system or a centralized one program, one AI, one technology overseeing this system to ensure that man doesn't corrupt it again. Am I wrong?
Uh, so there's elements of that that are reflective in my philosophy, but that I think is a very bad idea to have about how to solve these issues.
Mm.
Um, I think where you're apprehending something core, from my opinion, is that we actually require a superior intelligence for our economy to function. Human beings are not intelligent enough to determine what price levels are on their own in ways that will allow an economy to flourish in a complex system, because it's sort of a dog chasing its own tail. The faster the dog runs, the faster the tail is running away from it. Our intelligence as residing in our individual lives and brains and minds and whatnot is the problem. We are trying to figure out what the information is about our common interests. And so the more human brains there are, the smarter we are as people, the harder it is to figure out what our common interests are.
Mm.
And so we need a system that exhibits greater intelligence than we have. And we had a system that did that. Marketplaces, by aggregating human opinions and getting more than one person to solve the problem, could gather together multiple human perspectives in a highly efficient way. And again, this is a topic that multiple people have won Nobel Prizes for proving from multiple points of view around the political spectrum. That's what made markets function. The problem is that the psychological and strategic and physical factors that made that worked when everything in the system was a human being. And that's just not true anymore.
Mm.
Because computers are also producing information that's part of our system now. And the information that they produce isn't smarter than the information that we produce. In fact, it's pretty much universally stupider, but there's a lot more of it. And so we need to have systems that can deal with the apprehension of these much, much larger data boluses and the much, much greater numbers of perspectives that are involved from having a couple billion people on the internet all capable of talking to each other or talking to the marketplace, which is the important part. And that's where having markets that are capable of producing superior to human intelligence information would give us enormously greater benefits than we got from the much stupider but still smarter than us markets that we used to have, but we don't have anymore. Um, and so to that extent, you can use the words artificial intelligence because the market isn't a person. It is an artificial tool that we're using that's driving human interest and ingenuity and intellect and knowledge to produce knowledge that is broadly useful and more broadly useful than any one of us can produce. So the term artificial intelligence is semantically broad enough that it could include that. But systems that can encompass the economic interests of their participants and promulgate that is, as far as we can tell, absolutely necessary to the production and maintenance of complex society. And complex society is the only reason 7 billion of us are alive, because, human population maxed out a little below a billion with medieval levels of technology. So in the absence of complex society, we are looking at not mega deaths, but giga deaths. And I think that it's very much worthy to avoid that particular fate.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and I'm going to process. Man, I feel like you need to be advising some of the world leaders and talk some sense into them.
I do. Sadly, I've been unable to make any of those connections as of yet.
We got to figure out how to do that. We'll be right back after this.